Imagine riding through the misty forests of 15th century Wallachia. The air is heavy with smoke, the stench of decay clings to your throat, and ahead, rising like a grotesque monument, stands a forest of bodies. Thousands of men, women even, soldiers of mighty empires, skewered on stakes that pierce skyward like a nightmare frozen in wood and flesh. The torches burn, shadows dance, and silence screams louder than any battle cry. This was not the work of invading armies, but the will of one man, Vlad the Impaler. But who was he really? Was Vlad a savage monster, a sadist who delighted in cruelty? Or was he a patriot? Brutal, yes, but determined to protect his homeland from betrayal and Ottoman conquest? Or was he something far darker, a figure who blurred the line between necessity and depravity? Vlad III, known as Tepes, or the Impaler, has become infamous across centuries. To his enemies, he was a demon cloaked in human skin. To some in Romania, he was a national hero who defended Christian Europe against Ottoman expansion. And yet the truth of his life and reign is tangled in propaganda, myth and fear. German pamphlets painted him as a bloodthirsty tyrant. Ottoman chroniclers described him as a beast. Even sympathetic accounts hint at a ruler who wielded cruelty as both weapon and spectacle. In this documentary, we'll peel back the layers of legend and propaganda to reveal the chilling reality of what Vlad the Impaler truly did to his enemies. Some of these truths were so shocking they were whispered in fear, suppressed or dismissed as exaggeration, yet the evidence is undeniable. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about one of history's darkest rulers. To understand Vlad the Impaler, we must first step into the fractured world of 15th century Wallachia, a land wedged between empires, smothered in betrayal and forever drenched in blood. Wallachia was not a mighty kingdom, but a buffer state, caught between the ambitions of Hungary to the west and the ever-expanding Ottoman Empire to the east. Its ruler was expected to play a dangerous balancing act, swearing loyalty to one side, then the other, while keeping his own boyars, the feudal lords of the land, from plunging knives into his back. Treachery was common currency, and survival required more than diplomacy. It demanded fear. It was into this cauldron that Vlad III, later known as Tepes the Impaler, rose to power. Born in 1431 in Transylvania, the son of Vlad II Dracula, he inherited not only a throne, but also a blood-soaked stage. His father had sworn fealty to both Hungary and the Ottomans, a dual allegiance that cost him his life when betrayed by his own nobles. Vlad himself had been held hostage in the Ottoman court as a child, a pawn in the games of empires. The chronicles of Jan Długosz, a Polish historian, paint Wallachia as a land perpetually under siege, where villages burned as quickly as alliances. Ottoman court records describe raids, counter-raids, and shifting borders marked by piles of corpses rather than treaties. Castles crumbled under cannon fire, and fields once ripe with wheat reeked of rotting flesh. In such a world, paranoia was not madness, but necessity. Power could vanish overnight, stolen by treachery, crushed by invasion, or drowned in blood. For Vlad, terror was not simply cruelty, it was survival. The roots of Vlad the Impaler's reign of terror trace back to his childhood, a childhood stolen and shaped by violence. At just 11 years old, Vlad and his younger brother Radu were taken as hostages by the Ottoman Empire. They were pawns, held to ensure their father's obedience. In the Ottoman court, young Vlad witnessed both refinement and brutality. He studied language, strategy and politics, but he also endured humiliation, isolation, and constant threats of death. Chronicler Tursun Beg records that Ottoman punishments, whippings, torture, and executions were common sights for the boy prince. For a child torn from his homeland, such lessons carved deep psychological scars. When Vlad's father, Vlad II Dracula, was betrayed and murdered by Wallachian boyars, and his elder brother was blinded and buried alive, the young hostage learned The price of weakness. He returned to Wallachia, determined never to suffer betrayal again. To Vlad, loyalty was fragile, treachery inevitable, and fear the only currency that lasted. It was in this crucible that his obsession with impalement was born. German pamphlets of the 1460s, though often exaggerated propaganda, describe him perfecting this horrifying method of execution. A sharpened stake driven through the body, the victim left to die slowly in full view, while some accounts clearly sought to demonize him for foreign audiences. The consistency of reports across sources suggests that Vlad embraced impalement as both punishment and spectacle. For Vlad, cruelty became order. Fear became law. The boy who had once been powerless in foreign captivity returned to his homeland with a singular vow. No betrayal would go unpunished, and terror would be the iron wall that guarded his throne. Once Vlad seized power, terror was no longer an act of vengeance. It became the machinery of his rule. He institutionalized cruelty, turning execution into public theater. Villages that resisted his command awoke to forests of the impaled, rows upon rows of victims skewered on stakes, their twisted silhouettes stretching like a macabre skyline. These were not random killings, but carefully staged warnings, each corpse a message carved into flesh and wood. The German pamphlets known as the stories about Prince Dracula describe scenes where entire towns were punished in a single night. The boyars who once betrayed his father were invited to a banquet, only to be seized, impaled, or forced into backbreaking labor until death. Byzantine historian Leonikos Chalkokondyles recounts how Vlad's cruelty terrified the Ottomans, who stumbled upon valleys littered with the dead, an army defeated not by sword, but by spectacle, even peasants caught between Ottoman raiders. And Vlad's wrath lived in perpetual fear. For them, safety came at a price, absolute obedience. To disobey Vlad, even in small ways, meant joining the grim display outside the city gates. Yet some saw his terror as a shield, because under Vlad, crime within Wallachia nearly vanished. Few dared steal, for the punishment was too horrifying to imagine. The mechanics of impalement were designed for maximum dread. Victims were hoisted onto stakes, sharpened and sometimes greased, the bodies slowly sliding down as life ebbed away. Survivors and enemies alike could not forget the sight nor the smell that clung to the air for weeks. In Vlad's Wallachia, governance was not negotiated in words or treaties. It was etched into memory through pain, fear, and silence. At the height of his reign, Vlad's cruelty reached legendary proportions. The most infamous episode unfolded in 1462 near the city of Târgoviște, where the advancing Ottoman army, tens of thousands strong, encountered a sight so ghastly it broke their will to fight. Stretching across the fields were an estimated 20,000 corpses, impaled in a grotesque forest. Soldiers reported vomiting, recoiling in horror, some even fleeing before battle. This forest of the impaled, recorded in the Russian chronicles Skazany o Dracula Vovode, was not just execution, it was psychological warfare on a colossal scale. Other accounts, especially hostile German prints, paint Vlad as a man who not only ordered mass executions, but reveled in them. They describe banquets held among the dying, with Vlad calmly dining, as impaled victims twitched and groaned around him, dipping bread into blood, as though cruelty itself was sustenance. Whether these tales were exaggerations meant to shock European audiences or grounded in truth, the effect was the same. Vlad became synonymous with fear, but even stripped of myth, his strategy was undeniable. Terror was his strongest weapon. Where armies required supplies, fortresses, and manpower, Vlad wielded dread itself, demoralizing enemies before swords even crossed. The lines between history and propaganda blur here. The Russian chronicle portrays him as a stern but decisive ruler, while German pamphlets, shaped by political enemies, depict him as a sadistic monster. Yet in both narratives, one fact remains: his cruelty worked. Even today, his reign serves as a chilling reminder of how fear can be sharpened into a weapon, how propaganda can amplify horror, and how the image of a tyrant can become more powerful than the man himself. Vlad the Impaler's legacy remains divided, suspended between heroism and horror. In Romania, he is remembered by many as a defender who stood against overwhelming Ottoman expansion, a ruler who imposed order in a time of chaos. In Western memory, however, he has been immortalized as a sadist, a man whose name inspired the legend of Dracula, a figure synonymous with bloodlust and cruelty. But this leaves us with haunting questions. Does patriotism excuse cruelty, or does cruelty erase all claims to heroism? Can a man be both savior and monster, protector and executioner? History offers no simple answers. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, that power often grows from violence and that fear can bind a kingdom as tightly as loyalty. As we peel back the layers of myth and propaganda, one fact endures. Vlad understood the psychology of terror better than most rulers of his age, and whether we view him as hero or fiend, his methods remind us of the devastating cost when power is bought in blood. What shocks you most about Vlad the Impaler? Was he a necessary evil in a ruthless age, or proof that cruelty consumes even those who wield it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this exploration chilling yet insightful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more hidden histories, and join the discussion. This documentary condemns the acts described and presents them solely for educational purposes. These are not stories to celebrate, but warnings to remember. The stakes may have rotted away, but the echoes of terror still pierce history.